This is Lenora, your host for 3Ps in a Pod about purpose, pathways, and perspectives. And this is episode 6. As I'm figuring out what this podcast is, I realize I tend to have a bit of a theme, and that has to do with transition. Whether it's with youth transitioning into the workforce, into professionalism. I transitioned as a woman with kids back into the workforce. I really care about helping veterans with their transition in any way that makes sense where I can help, but transition. So today I'm actually talking a bit about comfort zones again. I think that'll probably come up with me a few times. So I'm going to let you dive into the episode. I hope you enjoy. Again, I had a bit of performance in my background and have trained thousands of employees. So welcome to another episode of 3Ps in a Pod. I want to talk about comfort zones. What is a comfort zone? Well, it's kind of a zone or an area where you're comfortable. So it's really that simple. In your life, in my life, we have areas that we are comfortable in, whether it's how we live financially, how we are personally. I mean, some of it's habits, but we also have like zones, areas where we're comfortable, how much we'll step out, maybe how risk averse we are. Certainly our personalities play into that. But however we grew up, we get these normal ways that we are used to. That can be great, or it can be really restricting. It can be really difficult and full of challenges, but that was your normal. So if you're going to change something, it's a risk. Even if it's a good risk, it can feel scary. So I was one that was, again, shy. People don't ever guess that now, but I really was. So I thought today I was going to talk about where I stretched out of a comfort zone years ago. It took me a while to get into a new zone of comfort where I was performing in front of a lot of people. For me, a lot meant over 1,000, audiences of over 1,000. And I played for 15 years. Well, actually about 12 or 13 of those years, I played a goofball character that was very over the top. She had a made-up accent, and she was supposedly a fashion model, and she always looked ridiculous. So it was a very fun character, very goofy character, very outgoing character in front of people. And that was a big step for me to perform in front of people at all. I wanted to do it, but it was a scary process for me. Now, people who were watching me didn't know that. My friends knew it, especially early on. But again, it's part of what acting is. I guess you're acting, you're pretending. And people don't necessarily know the struggles you've faced. So I like encouraging you on this podcast to step out to new things that you may want to do, new ventures, investing in your own talents, investing in things that you care about or have an interest in. So I thought I'd read a story that I kind of wrote. Well, I did write, but it's kind of my own story. About this process. It doesn't cover all the details, but I'm going to go ahead and read it. Again, I played this goofball character. Her name was Marzalena. She was de Marzalena, and she was a whole lot of fun. She'll love herself, and she'll love you too. It was something like that. But I'm going to read this because, again, it was about my process. Hopefully, this will encourage you to step out of your comfort zone, whatever area you're comfortable in, to something you want where you want more. You want something different. So, there you go. And I called this Time You're Gonna Fail. It was about year 7 of 15 of successful performances in front of crowds of 3,000 to 4,000 women every spring. I had grown tremendously. I was no longer tormented by fear. Now I was merely harassed and oppressed by it. My confidence had grown, and the fear had reluctantly shrunk from a monster to a large bully that still agitated me incessantly the days and moments before I stepped out on stage. I'll always remember my journey, so I can use it to propel myself forward in battles worth the win. I was a goofball as a kid, and liked to make my sister laugh when we were tiny. I was silly with my friends, and remember a favorite moment, maybe in high school, when my friend Maria told me to stop making her laugh because she could no longer breathe. In high school, I was briefly awakened from the boredom of days when watching a school play. It was The Diary of Anne Frank. It looked to be so satisfying to imagine and play on stage, but I was soundly insecure, and only the more unpopular kids performed in my high school shows. As invisible as I already felt I was, I couldn't bear the association with the stereotype of the group that performed. That was my insecurity, so I didn't. When I was more than 10 years older, the interest had begun to stir again. I felt the prompting to head that direction, and somehow opportunity came. The first year I stepped out onto stage, I had a small part, but in front of more than 2,000 women. I was literally tormented ahead of time by fear. The risk internally, the fear of failure and rejection, had been massive for me. In fact, I stepped so far out of my comfort zone that I actually had a panic attack the day after I performed when asked about how it went. The second year, I had a slightly bigger part, and yet I marveled at the lead actors. How did they even do that? I thought. Fortunately, I got through my lines and my fear. I was funny, and I was remembered. The next year, after not being able to even imagine carrying a show, I had the lead role. I played the same character that had begun as a bit part. That character became a fan favorite, and now was the lead of the show. The fear that accompanied my unexpected success was as big as the new number of lines I was now responsible for. Why did I do this to myself, one might ask? I can only say that something inside me wanted to play and perform badly enough that I prepared diligently and was willing to do it, tormented and afraid. I walked through that terrifying imaginary wall of fear each year to step out on stage. Each year the wall became thinner. Once I was on stage, it always got better, and I was successful again and again. After that, as we headed toward spring, we would learn if we had a green light for this same character with a new storyline, and each year we got a yes. We did 4 shows each spring, and they regularly sold out. My goofball character had new adventures, and the terror of performing was slowly being broken. Year 7, as the fear was trying to still remain, it kind of tried to grab hold of a new room to inhabit, and a new tactic jumped in. It was getting closer to opening night. I was considering how I'd been successful in the past years, and a thought came very clearly. I heard, "Yeah, but this time, you're going to fail." I tried to reason with the thought, but that was an unholy wrestling match. The reasoning could win, I could tell, as the reasoning said to me, "You're bound to fail. You can't always be successful. The odds are up. This time, you're going to fail." So instead of wrestling, I closed my eyes and I pushed the thoughts back out of the door of my mind. I had to push hard. I can succeed, I determined. God is in me, and He never fails. The odds don't matter. I will be successful. And I imagined the scene after. I felt the success before it happened. I felt all the laughter and the relief, and saw in my mind's eye that we had done it again. And that's exactly what happened in year 7. I chose the win before it happened and took the risk. I pushed the damnable thoughts out. They would not steal my win. It was a win for more than me now. I had too many new friends to win with that needed to share my freedom. You see, this character loved to play. She loved herself, and she loved you too. We began to play together. From there was new liberty, less fear, and more wins. It was during the next 8 years that performing really became fun. At times, I became almost too comfortable on stage. We always broke the fourth wall. That was part of the show. But I also improvised and took new risks to play with my new crowd of friends. Over time, the annual audience and my character had a delightful and funny love affair. Once or twice, I took things for granted, and I even drank coffee if I lacked adrenaline. Once or twice, I did forget a line. Once, my mic completely failed, but now I could play with the audience, and we all learned how to successfully fail and recover together. Failure isn't an end, I learned. It's merely a pause on a journey. Sometimes just a stumble that can be laughed at. If you fail, and in some ways you will, get back up. If you need to, take a breather. But most of all, don't be afraid to challenge fear. Fear is a liar, a bully. It's a thief. Fear can only be an effective warrior dependent on the weapons I give it. And the win over the year wasn't just for me. It was for a whole new crowd of friends. The story's over now. I'm just going to talk a little bit. Well, I have to thank the people that were my pastors at the time, Casey and Wendy Treat. They gave me such opportunity to stand out and do this in front of a large crowd. And it was such growth for me. I had the talent. Someone was willing to believe in me. They did not know how afraid I was. But I kept taking steps. I just would step out and do it. I'll share another example of comfort zones. I remember years ago, I thought about stand-up comedians, and I used to think, how on earth does somebody even do that? And then at the time, I had an agent. She created a workshop to learn about writing stand-up comedy. So I took the course, and it was pretty fun. And I remember that after the long weekend, our homework was to write our actual material, come back and do 5 or 10 minutes of stand-up comedy at a comedy club 2 weeks later. So I did. I spent probably a good 40 hours working on content because less is more. You got to write stuff and write it certain ways for it to really come across funny, at least for me. So I did do the stand-up comedy, but I knew even though I wrote it, fear is like the eraser of your mind. So even though I wrote the stuff, I kept notes in my hand because I was too afraid I would forget what I wrote because it was so new and, again, way out of my comfort zone. I even started the bit in a way that would help me. One of my first jokes was actually about how nervous I was. And I told the crowd I was nervous. And I said I needed them to do something to help me. So I got them to agree. And I said, okay, here's what you need to do. Ready? Okay, lower your expectations. Thankfully, I got a little laugh. And I said, okay, have you done that? Okay, ready for number 2? Lower them again. And I got even more laughs from that. So that's how I even eased my own fear when I was doing something brand new. I was telling the crowd, please lower your expectations. That really wasn't a joke for me, but I realized that is kind of funny. So I made it work. Sometimes when you're stepping out of your comfort zone, you need to take the pressure off yourself. Take a step. Take a step towards something new. And don't put so much pressure on yourself for it to go perfect. It doesn't matter if you stumble. Think about how little kids learn how to walk. I have 2. They're young adults now. But when they first learned how to walk, I'm telling you, I was excited at every step they took. You're bragging about it. You're telling your friends, oh my gosh, he took 2 steps today. He tried today to take a step. And they're like, great. But to you, it's so exciting. Any reasonable parent is not saying, oh my gosh, cover my eyes. I'm so embarrassed. My child fell down. Did I say my son was 2? He was walking when he was about 1. But when your child learns to walk, whatever little month or stage they're in, you're excited about it. You know they're going to fall down. That's part of the process. You fall, you get up, you fall, you get up, you fall, you get up. Hopefully, eventually you stop falling so much. That's how anything new in life is. You're taking steps. You're going to stumble. You're going to make mistakes. It's okay. It's part of the learning process. You don't want to fail. You don't try to fail, but you get up if you do. So whatever you're looking to do, if you have a talent you're interested in investing or an idea you want to pursue, just take a step. Keep taking a step. Maybe take a new step every day. Whether it's encouraging yourself or whatever it is, you decide. Take a new step today.